Welcome to the Peace Over Pain podcast with Dr. Kevin Reese, where we examine the body as a whole unit and move people from health burdens to health miracles. So get your questions ready, because the show starts now.
Welcome to the Peace Over Pain podcast. I'm your host, Joe LaChance. It is June 21st, 2022, and I'm here with the author of Peace of Pain, Dr. Kevin W. Reese.
Hey, Joe.
Welcome. How are you today?
Good.
Good. I'm doing well, too. So before we get started, I just wanted to remind people that we'll be taking questions at about 10:30 today. So if you have any questions for Dr. Reese, please leave them down in the comments below. Or if you want to get on air with Dr. Reese and actually speak to him, you can click on the Zoom link in the description and you can be connected to us. And we'll be starting that around 10:30. So we're looking forward to hearing all your questions, and we can't wait to answer and hear from you, the listeners. So, Dr. Reese, I just wanted to let you know that I received finally my book this weekend, and I want to thank you for the copy and the autograph. That was very nice of you, and it was a nice surprise in the mail. So thank you very much for that. And yeah, I was looking through the book, and we went over the carousel of frustration last week and the medical monopoly. And the first thing that struck me right in the first chapter is when you start talking about the macro and micro methods. Mm-hmm. And this is really pretty much what the program is based on. It's the corrective methods that you use. And first of all, would you explain to the listeners what's the difference between a micro and a macro method? And then we can get into what they actually are.
Yeah, so I use the three corrective macro methods, and those are methods that contribute to the whole structure. So we have our body as a vehicle, right? And so the musculoskeletal system is the body. We take care of that with postural therapy. Then we need fuel to go into the vehicle, and that's clinical nutrition. And then we have this onboard computer. And so for that, it's mindfulness training. So those are macro. They take care of the whole body.
Right.
Micro would be something like massage therapy or acupuncture or herbal medicine, things like this. It's not that those can't help. A lot of people get triggered by that because they're so attached to their method, but those typically are assisters. They assist. But when we put the three macro methods together, that's when we can really, really heal the body at a high level, which makes it very quick. Right.
So in a nutshell, the macro methods are the big picture type of deal. And the micro methods are the smaller details, let's say. We can call them details. And of course, in each category of the macro methods, there are micro methods below them. And there are three macro methods that you basically focus on. And what would those three be?
Postural therapy, clinical nutrition, and mindfulness training.
Right. So, and the book starts right off. The first macro method is postural therapy. Yeah. Right. And I don't think I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with chiropractors. They're familiar with, like, say, orthopedic doctors and going to physical therapy. And they think that is part of some kind of postural therapy. But what you're talking about is deep down structural postural therapy. This is stuff that you can make a permanent change with, basically, right? And, I was looking through it and it's amazing that the body, the amount of bones and muscles and tendons and ligaments that are in your body that makes up your body. It's like a machine. There's 200 bones, 700 muscles, over 4,000 tendons, 900 ligaments, and just tons of soft tissue.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the muscular skeletal system.
Mm-hmm.
And the muscular skeletal system, just like a car, is designed to be put together in a certain way and in certain alignment in order for your body to function properly, correct?
That's right.
Right. And I think that what most people don't understand is the correlation between some of their health issues that they might have going on and their posture.
Right.
Right. So somebody might come to you with a problem saying that doesn't have anything to do, like, a lot of people say, oh, my knee hurts, my back hurts, my neck hurts. But if somebody comes to you with, let's say, migraines, right, which seems to be a mental head problem, right? The doctors will treat it as if it is something going on in your brain or your head, when realistically, the root cause of a migraine could be something totally in your structure, in the way you are holding your body, holding your weight.
Yeah, that's
right?
Correct. Metabolism itself can be disabled through your posture, and metabolism is life.
Right. Right. Exactly. Because I don't think what people understand is your posture, even though we talked about the muscular skeletal system and how many pieces there are together to that, it also interacts, because it is your base, with all the other systems. So if you have a pinched nerve, it could actually affect your lymphatic system. Or if you're out of joint and your hip is rubbing against something, this could affect your circulation and in your lymphatic system. And people don't realize a lot of the reason they have to get hip replacements and things like this has nothing to do with wear and tear, but it's the way they're wearing and tearing it. And that's right. Right.
That's a good way to put it.
Right. So, I mean, like I talked in the beginning about chiropractors and things like that. And that's what most people would think. Oh, if I'm out of alignment, I go to my chiropractor, I'm right back in alignment. I feel good. But what happens 2 days later, 3 days later, right?
Right.
You have to go back.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of the difference of what we're talking about. And nothing against chiropractors. I've seen a chiropractor. I have a great friends who are chiropractors, but it is a short-term solution.
It's micro.
It's micro. There we go. And so your book and your system projects a whole different type of postural therapy, something that can be long lasting, something that only takes a couple minutes of your time. Explain to us a little bit, first of all, how you got into this. And second of all, what is the postural therapy, and what does it mean? What is it in your program?
Postural therapy is, well, first of all, let's talk about posture.
Right.
Posture is the position of your musculoskeletal system, basically, which essentially is muscles, because muscles move bones.
Right.
Your joints and your bones, they're just there. They're your grid. And, it's muscles that are moving my hand right now. And
Right.
the bones in my hand, they're just going around. They're just going for the ride. So posture is the overall position of your body when you're standing up, essentially. And we can see their posture with our trained eyes through photos. And here at the Peace Over Pain Clinic, we evaluate the photos on video with plumb lines and such. And that's what I call in the book a P-ray.
Right.
Instead of an X-ray, it's a P-ray. And no radiation needed.
Right. And you can do it at home.
Yeah, right from home. I can see your posture. And by seeing the posture, we can now evaluate what muscles are out of balance and what's going on. And then we prescribe a postural therapy routine or protocol
Right.
that then corrects that situation. And the protocols last 2 weeks.
Right.
And then we do photos again. And we keep doing it and doing it and doing it and doing it. And it only takes a week or two for a client to say, oh my gosh, I'm changing, because you see the photos.
Right.
It's a human experience. And so postural therapy is done 15 minutes in the morning, 15 minutes in the evening. That's it. That's it. And when the body finally does get corrected, and that could take, I mean, typically we aim for 4 months, but it could take 6-7 months, depending on your situation.
Right. There are some people whose posture is really bad.
And once you are corrected, then we can strengthen. Then your postural therapy becomes your exercise routine. There's no reason to go to the gym. There's no reason to do high intensity interval training. There's no reason to go to yoga unless you use yoga as mindfulness training, But postural therapy, it's two dogs, one bone.
Right.
Because you're fixing your posture, but you're also strengthening your muscles. And like, I haven't done, besides walking, I haven't done any exercise in a year and a half. And
any like weight training or anything like that?
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing. Just postural therapy. And I've maintained my weight, no problem. So, and you don't have to sweat.
Right. Now, I full disclosure, I am doing postural therapy myself. And, I want people to know that it's a very easy and short routine. I kind of liken it to, like you talked about yoga. If somebody was doing yoga, I kind of almost liken it to yoga poses. You know what I mean? Because you do sit in a position for a minute. It's pretty, but there are some also active exercises. But
yeah, I like to say it's like yoga meets Pilates meets physical therapy.
Right.
It's like if you took all three and you combine them, and then you actually have a therapist. Here at the clinic, we have Rain Krause. So Rain would create a routine based off your photos. And in 2 weeks, you would get another routine based off your photos. So it's based off of the P-rays.
Right.
And that's what separates it from yoga, from Pilates, from physical therapy. Physical therapy is good after a surgery, or, like an athlete after they get injured, that type of thing. It's rehab. Physical therapy is good for rehab.
Right.
But, if your hip is just randomly sore, physical therapy, 8 times out of 10 isn't the solution.
Isn't the answer, right?
No, it's postural therapy, because the problem in the hip is coming from the overall posture, and that can easily be proven through the photos.
Right.
So this is very visual. It's just like when you go to a medical doctor and you think your foot is broken, and you get an x-ray and you actually see with your own eyes, hey, look, my foot's broken.
Right.
There's no dispute. And so postural therapy is the same thing. We take the P-rays, we see the photos, we can actually see what's wrong.
Right.
And I had to go through this.
I did.
Because, I had carpal tunnel, costochondritis, I had my sternum injury, I had all these things, my calves. I was going through so much pain, and I went to the osteopath and the chiropractor and everywhere, and nobody had any answers for me. But when I found postural therapy, the pain was gone in 3 weeks.
Right.
Now, I'm not perfect. I'm still working on myself. I have a pinched nerve. It acts up sometimes. But I know exactly what to do. There's no fear. There's no more fear. The fear is gone. because you know exactly what to do. And it's this macro method called postural therapy. So,
Right.
okay, my pinched nerve's acting up. That means my shoulder's out of alignment and it's pinching the nerve. So let's go get it back in alignment.
And then there's a specific exercise that you can do for your shoulder.
Exactly. And it's a whole routine.
Yeah. And people need to know it's very easy because you actually get videos. There,
Yeah.
you're working with an app here.
Yeah.
That gives you videos with instructions. So you can always go back and look at them or watch the demonstrator and see if you're doing it right.
Right.
So, I mean, this is made very simple for you. It's not like you even have to think too much, right?
No, you really don't. All you need to do is find a corner in your house, in your home.
Right.
And, perhaps spend a few $100 on some equipment.
Yeah, a mat.
Help. But you can get away with, a chair. But, this is happening with my mom right now. So she's finally doing postural therapy. And she was all excited the other day because she went to the doctor and she gained an inch back. So my mother's 4'11". Wow. And she shrunk to 4'10". But now doing postural therapy, she's back to 4'11". But she's still waking up to this therapy.
Right.
So she's wondering, there's still doubt. It's like, could it be from this? What else would it be from? If you're eating vegetables, what would make you grow back your inch?
Right.
And so it's postural therapy because, we have the discs and the discs get compressed from the muscles. And so what we're doing is we're lengthening.
Right.
And you're getting it back. And this is the same thing with bulging discs, herniated discs, the list goes on and on and on. Bursitis, bunions. These are all tennis elbow. These are all things that can be corrected. They all come from posture. All of them. It's not the activity that injures you. It's the posture that you bring to the activity. And that includes computer work, because I consider myself a computer athlete. And I'm going to write a book one day called Computer Athletes. I'm copywriting it right now, because being a tenacious computer nerd and sitting there for hours and hours, it's very unnatural. And even moving a mouse is problematic because you're moving one arm. There's a range of motion there.
Right.
And so this is what we have to nip in the bud. If you're an athlete, if you like running, if you like jogging, if you like playing tennis, if you like playing pickleball, if you're a computer athlete, or you just like hiking or bike riding, whatever it is, you need postural therapy to keep you healthy. Postural therapy is to your muscles what brushing and flossing is to your mouth.
Right.
It needs to be done every single day. Every single day. That's the difference, Joe, between chiropractic and yoga and what have you. Yoga, you just go when you can.
And you do it for an hour and a half sometimes, and you sweat and
Yep. And we already talked about the chiropractor. You get snap, crackled, and popped, and you're back next week. Or when you hit pain again. Postural therapy is every day, twice a day, just for 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, this is not tough.
Right. And if anybody already has a morning routine, where they're stretching or where they're doing something like that, this easily fits right into it. And then at night before you go to bed, it's the same deal. And there are a lot of exercises that while you're doing them, you can actually feel the relief. You can actually feel it, loosening up, and you feel better after you do them. So why not right before you go to bed, do something that's going to make you feel better and sleep better, possibly.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know,
sleeping is an activity too.
of course.
So like for me, for example, I'm a side sleeper. Well, I'm coming up on 43 years old. I don't want to change my sleeping. I sleep on my side. It is what it is. But postural therapy allows me to sleep on my side.
Right. It doesn't hurt anymore, right?
Right.
Yeah, I used to find that too. I'm a side sleeper and my ribs would start hurting, and it's why? Well, it's because of the way my posture is. So, a lot of people don't understand. You may have never had an injury. You may have never even been an athlete. How does people posture get out of alignment in the first place?
Well, we're using our muscles every day. Even to use the bathroom, you're using your muscles. So it's just a use of muscles. And, a lot of it comes from lack of motion, being a couch potato, watching television, again, working in the office, being a computer athlete, all these activities, video games and such. All of this is going to alter your posture because muscles have memory.
Right.
So if you're always like this, eventually the muscles will just get comfortable there and they will lock.
Right.
And we see this a lot with older folks when they get bent.
Yeah.
And then the head's like this.
Yeah.
And they're looking at the ground pretty much.
And then they can't help it. You want to tell them to pick their head up, but they really can't because it's too hard.
Right, because the muscles have now locked in place.
Right.
We need postural therapy to undo that. You can't just go to a chiropractor and get
no.
That is not the way. It's not the way, and I know that probably triggers them, but postural therapy is the only way. It's not surgery. It's not injections. And then, of course, when we're eating correctly, staying off the poor 4 foods, getting our 90 essential nutrients and giving our body the raw materials that it needs, things work even better.
Right.
Now the postural therapy is supported.
With the flow, right, of the nutrients and everything else. Yeah, no, exactly. It's a 3-pronged program. And but this week, we're focusing on the posture part. And, I know you talk a lot about P-rays and maybe I think it might be cool if we showed a P-ray to.
Let's do it.
Yeah, we will. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I think it would be good to show one every week or some sort of posture. Because I'll tell you, Joe, out of the 3 macro methods,
right,
postural therapy is the one that people don't know enough of.
Well, yeah, I think, and that's why I wanted to cover it first, because I thought that, I thought that it's the least known. Everybody knows about nutrition. A lot of people are already practicing mindfulness. Nutrition has been an issue for a while, but posture has never really been brought to the forefront. And I know this is something you're hoping to do. Yeah. Because if you can start doing just a few simple exercises before you get way out of alignment, you can avoid years and years and years of pain and ailments.
Right.
So the quicker you bring it, I'm with you right there. The sooner we bring it to the forefront, the better. We're going to look at a P-ray here. And this is Rain is in this one as well, right? She is the
the therapist on staff.
Right. So let's take a look at this.
All right, we got a P-ray here. What do you see right away?
Right away. Look at her right side. Look at her left side. Look at her knees. So what do we see? We got sway back. Positioning on the right side with an anterior pelvic tilt. On the left side, she's relatively stacked. So that's an imbalance. If you look at the front of her, we can examine that a little bit more with her knees.
Yeah, look at the shoulders.
Yep, and the shoulders, of course.
Look at that.
But if you recall, her left side is stacked better. So the left shoulder is actually situated better. And then as you can see here, her right arm is really long. It's because it's rotated forward and kind of falling off her body a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The pelvis looks tilted too.
Look at this face. Go back up. I love this elbow window. Look at the elbow windows on the right and on the left. No window on the left. You see how the shirt fills? Yeah. And go
right here, right?
Yeah, that's a huge tell of a thoracic offset. And you can try that yourself, right? If you move it over, you get a big window on one side and a flat on the other. That's why her arm is hanging.
And we got some knock knees.
We have some knock knees. So her left knee likes to hide behind her right knee. And that's how she gets her feet to be side by side. Right now, you probably told her to stand a certain way, or perhaps she knew following the directions. But in her lifetime, she puts the left one behind the right one to create stability and symmetry. But that's a rotation all the way up from her feet to her shoulders.
Yeah, and this knee looks like it's everted. And you look at the foot.
Go back. The foot that femur is externally rotated.
Yeah.
The right, so you can almost see like the kneecap, the eyeball of the kneecap, if you would. It's looking stage right.
Yeah.
And then we would love her second toe and her kneecap to line up, but they're not. So that the whole leg is externally rotating.
Isn't that interesting how the left one's pretty straight and then the right one is just and forward.
Go to her side view. Go to her left side view for us. And open that one up. Mm-hmm. Draw that plumb line for us, and we'll see what you saw in the front plane and the side plane. Yep.
Yeah.
So her knee and her hip are better aligned on this side, right? She still has an anterior pelvic tilt. She still has her pelvis in front of her plumb line. So her head and her pelvis are in front of the plumb line. Her shoulder is behind. And if you want to explain that more, go ahead. But that's the rotation. That's the struggle, right? Put your head forward, your hip back, and your arm forward. It's a very bad dance. It doesn't even make sense. But she's stuck over there. That's her go-to strong side. Let's go to the right side. This is almost like her side that moves, if you would.
Yeah, look at the sway back, big time.
It's really bad. I'm not laughing at the posture. I'm laughing at the tell, which is, like I said, this woman probably puts her right leg in front of her left, and then everything is stable. And that's a very common thing for people with a valgus knee to do, because when told to put their feet side by side, they cannot because of the way their bones grow. And that's just the way it is. When you have a valgus knee, you're always going to have weak inner thighs.
Look at this. It's just kind of.
Yeah. But draw the plumb line for them, because that shows where she's traveling. So that the traveling, or we call it a transition, right? Her body is moving. Her hip is nowhere on the line, but her shoulder is. So remember, we were talking about the shoulders. Which shoulder was in the right spot? This shoulder is actually a little better, but everything else is really struggling and getting pulled to the left. Right. Everything's going counterclockwise, right? Even her foot. Her foot is going counterclockwise. And she's like, what, at 1 o'clock?
Yeah.
Lefty's at 12, righty's at 1. She's truly... And then the back side, if you really can see the shoulder disparity here when looking at the back. The back is my favorite place to look on people is the back. I feel like the front is my last place I go, because this is the spine. You can see everything but the spine. I mean, she's even worn a shirt that gave us a spine line. It's great. I love using clients' clothing because the clothes often pull the way the body pulls.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah,
then you
look at this right here. It's
yes, sir. And again, check out her elbow windows. Where she touches, where she doesn't touch.
yeah, more over here than over here.
Right. So that lets you know she's shifting left, loading left, and doing on the right.
Would you say that the right hip is elevated here?
Yes, sir. Definitely.
Yeah.
And you can go across, and the gluteal fold is another place where you can look. It's right under the bum, and it goes straight across, and your ischial tuberosities sit on that fold. So it's almost like you can keep going down, and then you look at the knees, and they're not quite the same, right? The crease, you can see lefties more. This is going to be a weird one. They're externally rotated, right? But they look internally rotated. But again, that's because of the knock knee.
Mm.
It's an illusion. Let's look at her ankles. Let's look at her feet. We don't have enough feet. We gotta go find another feet picture.
Yeah,
That's a good foot. So the front tells us a lot about her feet.
Mm.
So in an ideal world, we love them to be on the same, parallel planes, like they're side by side.
Right.
In Rhode Island, it's side by each. It's only in Rhode Island, though.
All right. So this young lady needs postural therapy.
Yes, sir.
And that's the bottom line. It can be corrected.
We want to reduce that rotation.
Yeah.
Then we're going to neutralize that pelvis back to neutral. We're going to decrease the stress in the lumbar, increase thoracic extension, functionality, get her head back over her legs. I'm not going to try to change the knock knee because that's the way she came onto the planet, but I'm going to give her all the tools to utilize that. And she can probably rock a pair of high heels when she was a youth because a knock knee can do that, but only for so long. So she might have some, very strong calves. That's why I say that, because you can see there's sinewy behind the ankle, which tells me she has potential. Her ankles are not tight, but they're not talking to her hips. Therefore, her feet are not talking to her shoulders. The whole system's a little off, and we can help that.
All right. And that
was fun, Dr. Reese.
All right. So that was really, really interesting and informative. I got to tell you.
Yeah. Rain is like one of those nerds from the Big Bang Theory.
Oh, yeah.
For posture.
Well, that's cool though, right?
Yeah.
You
knows
need
all
somebody
the
like that.
The anatomy and everything. And so she just loves talking about it. So all I got to do is put a body in front of her and she'll start rambling.
Very cool. Yeah, but there was a lot of interesting things in there. The knock knees were very cool.
Yeah.
But I also did want to remind people that we want to take their questions. We want to take, if anybody wants to call in, please do it. And why don't we come back in a second and we'll start talking about some questions that we got over Instagram. All right. So we'll be back in a second.
Do you have a question or comment for Dr. Reese? You can either call in to talk live, or you can leave an email or voicemail for next week on peaceoverpain.com.
Okay. I just want to keep reminding people that, because that's really what we want to do. We want to talk to the people, and hear what they got to say. So we do have some questions that came over through Instagram, and I wanted to see if you wanted to tackle a couple of them.
Yeah. Sure.
All right. This comes from a gentleman who goes by Music Dude 81. So he wants to know, are flax seeds as good as omega-3 source as animal products are?
No.
And he's saying fish oil, basically.
No, not at all. The plant omegas, hemp seeds, flax seed, chia seed, they don't convert in the body. They just don't convert to what you need. And it's complicated. There's three acids in there that you need. DHA and all that stuff. So no,
EFA, DHA, right?
it's just not. And a lot of plant-based people, starch vegans,
right?
They end up very deficient in essential fatty acids, and essential fatty acid deficiency is not what you want. I mean, that leads to brain problems, low libido, blood clots, Alzheimer's, asthma, I mean, skin conditions, the list goes on and on. You need your essential fatty acids and omega-3s.
Right.
The best source of that is arguably cold water fish.
Fish. That's what I was going to say.
I say arguably because some people will also say, well, you're getting heavy metals with fish. So there is a thing there, but you can also get it in eggs. You can get it in ghee. And I consume a bunch of ghee. And then obviously you get it from red meat as well. So, it's
or
not
you
as
can
good, unfortunately.
buy fish oil supplements, right?
Yeah, but I wouldn't take fish oil exposed.
Right.
The ones that we give clients are in a gel.
Right.
Gel
Oh, yeah, of course. Right.
So that it's not exposed.
And the ones that you use are a little bit hyped up, a little bit more than just your typical fish oil capsule that you would buy at the pharmacy or whatever, correct?
Yeah, our EFAs
they have a little bit more oomph to them.
Yeah. And there are flaxseed in them too.
Right. Because it does have omega-3s, but it's just not good as a sole source.
Right.
Right. So in combination with other things, it's great. But if you're trying to get your nutritional value of omega-3s from just a plant-based source, you're probably going to come up short.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And this is why, it's hard. I was a vegan, and I know through yours and another doctor recommendation, I was told to start eating more eggs and fish. And it was a very difficult thing for me to come across in my head. But I realized that, first of all, there's no animals being killed when you eat eggs. So that was good. And the second thing was, if fish is good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for me.
That's good rationale.
Yeah. So we can go on to the next question. So that's the answer to that. So here's one that kind of has to do with posture. This comes from a gentleman named Ryan, and he wants to know, what is the importance of the trapezius muscle? What does it do?
So the trapezius, I like to call that the psoas of the upper body, because the psoas connects the upper body and the trapezius connects the psoas connects the lower body and the trapezius connects the upper body. The trapezius is huge, and it connects your occipital bone, skull, which is basically the skull, the back of the skull. And then that comes down to the shoulders, and then it comes down all the way down the thoracic spine. So it's massive. And without it, you wouldn't be able to, do this. And so the trapezius is definitely a muscle that we work a lot with in postural therapy. And if it gets tight and out of whack or even weak, then there's going to be problems.
Right.
A lot of neck problems, shoulder issues. It's just a monster. It's huge.
It's huge. You see the bodybuilders, and they're also proud of their traps, right? The big, giant traps. I got to think that having too big of a trapezius could be a detriment. These bodybuilders, they got great muscles, right? They build up some awesome muscles. And obviously, like you said, muscles make the whole thing move. But don't you get to a point where it almost becomes a detriment to have that much muscle, especially to your posture?
Yeah, having a lot of muscle is just kind of a burden.
Right.
But the traps that you're talking about up here,
yeah,
You remember Goldberg? He had like traps up to his ears. It's just
Right.
But the trapezius, that's just the top.
That's right. It goes down, right?
Yeah, it's massive.
Right.
It is really big. I mean, you think about it. It's connecting the back of your skull to your shoulders and then to your mid spine.
Right.
That covers a lot of territory.
Yeah, that's big. And would you say that's probably one of the most important muscles in the body?
That and the psoas. The psoas connects the lower spine, the lumbar, to your thighs.
Oh.
So the psoas, which we're using right now to sit down.
Yeah.
The psoas is like the general of the lower body, and the trapezius is like the general of the upper body.
The upper body, right. Because it controls neck pretty much, because it's connected to the back of your neck down to your pelvis there, right?
Yeah.
So there's two main muscles, and those are the macro muscles.
I guess. I mean, kind of. And then the glutes are huge too.
Is that like the connector between the two?
The glutes are our booty.
I know that.
That's yeah. I mean, those are probably the three big ones.
Right.
Those are the three big ones. But there's so many little ones.
Right.
Underneath, like if you take the trapezius away, there's still muscles underneath.
Right.
It's truly, truly phenomenal to see it.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. And I'm sure that's,
and I have a program which we'll probably use in more sessions with Rain, where I can show people this, and I can actually take muscles away visually, and we can go deep down into the bone, and you can see the deep muscles, which are typically called posture muscles.
Right.
Because the trapezius and the muscles that we typically know, those are superficial. Those are
the top
to the skin.
Right.
But deep down, man, there's some wild muscles. I mean, your eyes, there's muscles working your eyes.
Yeah, it's truly, truly an amazing, complicated machine.
It really is. There's no way that it's not divine, in my opinion.
Right. No, I tend to agree with you on that. All right, let's go to Lygia, and she wants to know, how does she raise her antioxidant levels?
So antioxidants are absolutely mandatory on our program, because that's what neutralizes free radical damage, and free radical damage 8 times out of 10 is what causes the sea monster.
Right.
So
well, what are free radicals?
Free radicals, analogy wise, is fire. That's things that come in from the outside. They're oxidized.
Meaning
they come into the body and they create inflammation. And inflammation is where the sea monster lives. That's how the sea monster comes about. So it's a chain reaction type thing. And free radicals come from our food as well as environmental. So
they can come right from the air, the soil.
Yeah, it could come from the exhaust from a car. It can come from asbestos.
Factory.
It could come from factories. Anything that you're breathing in, anything that gets into your body needs to be neutralized with antioxidants.
Because they're oxidized. Well, that just makes sense.
Antioxidation.
Oxidant, right.
And so in our 90 essential nutrients, the ORAC score, which is how we measure antioxidants, the ORAC in this is, I believe, 8,000. So that's a great head start for the day. You want to be at 20,000 or more. We have another product called Immortalium, which is one of our secret weapons. That's around 10,000. Then there's the Cell Shield. That's 15,000 ORAC. And there's the Z radical, that's 5,000 ORAC a shot. So this is how we get our antioxidants. You're not going to get it from food. The naturalists, they want to believe that they can just eat some grapes and they're good. It's just not possible. We need supplementation. Supplementation is the technological advancement that we use to live better and longer. Just like a refrigerator helps us, just like the air condition helps us, and just like without Wi-Fi, people wouldn't even be able to watch this video.
Right.
So we're, the naturalists are unintentionally being hypocrites because they're watching this on their Wi-Fi, but they won't take supplements. It doesn't make any sense. We need antioxidants, and you need 20,000 or more. If somebody had the sea monster, I would get them on 100,000 or more.
Right.
That's how important it is.
And a lot of people, you talk about the naturalists, they want to go back to the way, and live a natural life. And unfortunately, when humans were doing that, there wasn't as many free radicals in the air.
That's a great point.
The earth was much more pure, right? We were in a different age. So yeah, you eat grapes and maybe that was enough for you back in the day. But now we live in a whole different world that isn't necessarily human friendly or any living organism friendly. Let's be real.
Yeah.
I mean, the pollutants and then the things that we do to this planet are not friendly to humans, animals, or plants.
Automobiles alone, have changed everything.
Right.
It's convenient that we can drive somewhere or take a plane across the country, but what's it doing to our air?
Right.
So what's the solution? Well, you're not going to get rid of automobiles and planes. The solution is to take more antioxidants.
Right. You have to supplement. There's not a lot you can do about it. We are living in an entirely different world now than what we were, let's say, created in. So we were created, born, whatever you want to say, to live in a certain environment, an ideal environment.
Yeah.
That ideal environment is no longer ideal. It really isn't. So the species that live here, and luckily most plants do it naturally. Most animals have the instinct to do it naturally. Unfortunately, us humans, with that great intelligence we have to develop ways to do it externally.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But we have the intelligence to do that.
Well, it's just like this computer and this phone. It's giving off electromagnetic frequencies, and so stuff like this, fine tuning bracelets, and I have stuff on the back of my phone that that neutralizes it a little bit. You do what you can because these electrical frequencies, we don't even know what they're doing to us. I mean, we know it's not positive.
Right.
But the effects won't even be known for another 20 or 30 years.
Yeah.
So,
and we're seeing them now.
We're seeing them now. Some people are
from 20, 30 years ago. Right.
Some people are very sensitive to Wi-Fi and whatnot. So
absolutely.
If you wanted to live, if the naturalist was serious,
right,
then they would build a cabin, they would get out into the woods, and they would hunt their food. And when you hunt the animal, you have to eat the whole animal because the nutrients are in the big nutrients are in the organs. Right. So do you want to eat organs or do you want to drink this?
And do you want to go out and kill animals? Is that really what you want?
Right.
Be spending your time doing,
Right. So, I mean, it's best to just supplement, make sure your antioxidants are through the roof, and we have all the products that do that. And the way it's done is someone in a lab took this and this and this and this, and they formulated it. It's no different than Chinese medicine, where they take,
Right.
7 herbs and create a formula. It's the same concept. They take
Right.
some, IC berries and make it into a powder, and then they take some, some blueberries, make that into a powder, and then you take this plant and that plant and this, and you formulate it into a substance that you can take very easily and
Right.
and give yourself a edge.
Yeah.
An
Interesting.
advantage.
All those fruits, all those berries you mentioned are high in antioxidants.
And one of my favorite people that I've ever studied is Jack LaLanne.
Right.
Jack LaLanne.
He's OG.
Jack LaLanne, the godfather of fitness. He lived till 96, but that's not even the key stat. The key stat is that he lived till 96 with vitality.
Right.
His health didn't decline until his 96th year. He was great for 95 years. I mean, he just knocked it out of the park. And he's on record. They ask him, what supplements do you take? And he goes, I take everything from A to Z. And he ate clean.
Yeah.
And that's the key. And that's what I'm trying to educate people on, is it's not so much the diet that you're on. It's the supplementation combined with the foods you're not eating, staying off of the poor 4 foods. We'll talk about that in another episode, but you get off the poor 4 foods, get your 90 essential nutrients, get your 2000 ORAC, and you have an advantage in your life.
Right. Right. And then, of course, combining that with the other things, you're going to have an even bigger advantage.
Right.
All right. So you just talked about the sea monster. Our last question comes from a gentleman who goes by the name of Money Sports Music. And he wants to know, what is a sea monster? I'm late to the game.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Ever since I've been calling it the sea monster, some people get it. Some people it clicks. Some people it doesn't. But the sea monster is cancer. And I call it the sea monster because it's a double meaning. It's a monster because it's the scariest word in the human language.
Right.
If a doctor tells you you have the sea monster, you will feel different that day.
Absolutely.
That news will it will shatter your world. 2, the medical monopoly actually fishes for it.
Right.
With mammograms and colonoscopies and all sorts of tests that cost millions of dollars. So it's an entire industry. They're looking for it, just like, and I talk about this in the Peace Over Pain book, just like the classic movie Jaws.
Right.
They go out on the boat and they're looking for a monster shark. Right? Well, that boat costs a lot of money that the medical monopoly puts out there. So they're fishing for the monster. And when they find it, they send you down this rabbit hole of chemotherapy and radiation that makes them millions and millions of dollars.
And yeah.
And no other solution. They don't talk about antioxidants. They don't talk about your food choices. They don't talk about what air you're breathing. It's just, this is all we know. This is all we do. And so the sea monster is truly a sea monster. We call it sea-monster, but it could be SEA monster, sea monster, Loch Ness monster, Jaws.
Right. That's the little word metaphor there, right? I call it sea monster for cash monster. That's what I think it ends up being in the medical industry, is a cash monster.
But that too, and so hey, 3 meanings in one. But ever since I started calling it the sea monster, people have been reacting to it, and so that's good. That means the branding is working. This is just branding the poor 4 so you remember it. The sea monster so you remember it.
Right. Right.
These are just little branding techniques to help people gain an understanding and get to where they need to be.
Yeah, and put it in their consciousness. Right. Exactly. So it's easy to remember. Well, very cool. We got about 5 minutes left, and I just wanted to, before we sign off, I wanted to just play a little something, and then we'll be back to sign off. All right?
Have you read Peace Over Pain yet? This short but powerful book reveals how to eliminate chronic pain and or illness faster than any other known therapeutic approach. Download the Peace Over Pain book for only $4.95 and gain instant access to the ebook version, audiobook version, and a video training with Dr. Reese. Go to peaceoverpain.com and start reading or listening right now. This is the information you've been praying for.
Yeah, so everything that we talked about today is pretty much covered in the book. And, I know that this is a Peace Over Pain podcast. So I think if you're a listener and you want to get the book, I think you should. I've been listening to the audio book. I have the copy here, and we've talked a lot about posture today. So we've gone over one of the macro methods because this is a complete system, and I want people to know that. We saw P-Ray, which to me was very, very, very interesting. Actually, watching you analyze it with Rain. Yeah. There was a lot of points in there. The knock knees, the space in the elbow was very telling. Some of the things I could see, even as a lay person,
right,
like right away, you could see where the posture was off. So for that person in there, what would the next step be? So you guys analyze it. You and Rain get together and you analyze it. So then what do you tell the patient? What's the next step?
The next step would be downloading our app, and then we would send them their first routine, which they would do for 2 weeks.
Right. And they get a report too, right? That tells them like what's going on, like.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, when they hop back on with their therapist, with Rain, every 2 weeks, they would discuss everything that's going on and the progress. And Rain would also do functional tests, because sometimes people can't do something.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that.
I just had someone the other day. I gave them arm circles, which is one of our.
Yep, I do them.
Our therapies, and he was saying that his backward circles were painful. So what we would do is, can you work through it or no? If you can't, then we would make adjustments, and that's why we have therapists.
Right, exactly. And then I want to reiterate that you do actually have therapists that work with you on this.
Yeah.
So if you run into a problem, or if you can't really figure out the video, they can help walk you through the exercises. So, it is not like, oh, here, throw you to the wolves, go do it on your own. And people need to know that.
Yeah, we have coaches on staff, I
right.
think even though they're therapists, I think we'll probably call them coaches, because nobody says therapist Rain, therapist Joe.
Right. Coach Rain. Right.
So, having
I like
coaches,
that better.
Having coaches is very, very important to what we do.
Right. So, we got about a minute left. I just wanted, where can people find you on social media?
Just in the Facebook group is fine.
Okay.
Peace Over Pain Facebook group. If you're listening to this somewhere else, such as Spotify or Apple Music or YouTube, you can simply come to peaceoverpain.com/join the group.
Right. There you go.
And you can download the book for free if you do that.
Oh, now that's a great way to save some money. And it's a good group to be a part of. I really enjoy it. And I think there's a lot of good stuff being talked about there. So with that, we will see you all next week at 10 a.m. right here in the Facebook group, the Peace Over Pain Facebook group. Thank you for tuning in and have a great day.
Thanks for watching the Peace Over Pain podcast live inside our clinic's Facebook group. Be sure to submit a question or comment for next week's show at peaceoverpain.com. Also, perform some goodwill and tell a friend in pain that you found their solution. Refer them to the Peace Over Pain podcast and the Peace Over Pain book and help them move closer to their miracle.